welcome to the Chrissy B Show. Now, everyone has feelings of anxiety at some point in their life. For example, you may feel worried or anxious about sitting an exam or having a medical test or job interview. Feeling anxious is something perfectly normal, but people with generalized anxiety disorder, GAD, find it hard to control their worries. Their feelings of anxiety are more constant and often affect their daily life. So whether you get anxious from time to time or this is something that you live with on a daily basis, this show is going to be great tonight for you because I'll be delving into this subject with my expert guest tonight, psychologist Dr. Michael Sinclair. And it's also Wednesday, as you know, so we'll also be having Chris Brown on, who will be sharing his self-development tips. And also, if you want to participate in this show, maybe anxiety is something that you've been through in the past, or maybe you're going through, and you want to let us know how you deal with it, you can give us a call on 020-7686-6300, or you can give us, can send an email as well, chris@chrissybshow.tv. And as you know, it's a live show, it's your show, so you can participate as well. But let's introduce our first guest, and that's Dr. Michael. Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
So good to see you here.
Thank you for having me.
So this topic hopefully is going to help a lot of our viewers. And actually, most people go through anxiety at some point in their life, don't they? It's not something uncommon.
Absolutely, yes. I think, you know, for the majority of us, we're experiencing some level of anxiety these days when we think about all that's going on in terms of the economy and losing our jobs and all this kind of stuff, or the threat of that. So anxiety is a very normal experience for most of us today.
Okay, can you give us like the doctor's definition of anxiety?
Right. Well, anxiety is, as we say, a very natural and often a very helpful psychological response to our perceived dangers and threats in life. It provides us with a vital boost of psychological, emotional and physical energy just when we need it most, when we need to protect ourselves against perceived dangers that may occur in our day-to-day life.
So our animal instinct then?
Absolutely. Yeah. You may have heard of a term called flight or fight response, which is exactly what we're talking about here. We can trace this back to our cave-dwelling ancestors, back to the caveman times. And if you can think of a caveman, you know, or the cavemen, they weren't a very confident bunch at all. They, you know, were just here on Earth and needed to survive and find their way through a very frightening and very new environment. So they were on high alert all the time, always second-guessing the worst possibility that could occur, pumped full of adrenaline in order to fight or flight any dangers that may occur. We've inherited this survival response, this fight or flight response. And in a way, it's actually quite helpful for us if we find ourselves in a
But it doesn't feel very nice, does it?
Well, it might not. It might not. But you can see how it could be quite productive if we find ourselves in a dangerous situation. If we ourselves need to think on our feet and either escape something by running away or fighting something. So we're being chased down the street by a maniac or something like that. I mean, we're going to really need to help ourselves. But anxiety can be a problem when it becomes too intense, too frequent, you know, goes on for too long. Or certainly starts to impede in our everyday life. So it may impact on our functioning at work or at home, in our relationships. People who are anxious may, you know, use alcohol or drugs to quell those feelings of anxiety, to try and get rid of them. And of course that can lead to physical and more psychological problems.
Okay. Who would you say would be more prone to anxiety? Is there sort of a certain type of person or something that they've been through, or male or female? What do you think?
Well, it's hard to distinguish between gender like that, and what we are seeing is that a lot more men are coming forward to clinics, for instance, like where I work, to gain help with some of their anxiety disorders. I think that we're talking about it a lot more today, and programs like this are great to promote self-help in that respect. So men are coming forward more, and we are seeing more men presenting with certain anxiety conditions, say around their body image, for instance, which we never didn't see that many before, indeed. But I think, you know, generally we all experience some level of anxiety. As I said, there's a lot of pressure for us to perform these days at certain levels. We've got our BlackBerries and our iPhones, and there's a constant demand to always, you know, be there, be present, to respond to emails, our social networking sites and so forth. So there's a constant sort of anxiety all the time to respond to things, to the demands that are placed on us. But underneath anxiety is something called confidence, I think, and that's something that we really need to start to think about. The symptoms of anxiety, the things that we experience that maybe we'll come to talk about, you know, are the things that people realise that they have a problem if it becomes too excessive. But that's not the real problem. The real problem is the underlying level of underconfidence that people may experience. As we just said, it goes back to our caveman days, who were an underconfident bunch. They used anxiety as a protective mechanism when they felt underconfident, and we do the same today.
Okay, but what are some of the symptoms then? So how do I know, for example, if I'm just feeling nervous about something or if it's something that I really need to get help for? Because you actually run a practice, you were telling me earlier, what's your practice like? You have 15, would you say 15 people?
There's about 15 psychologists in there,
right.
yes.
Which you manage and everything?
I manage them, yes. And
okay.
We run a practice in 3 sites in London, and we're inundated with clients at the moment.
Really?
Absolutely,
Gosh.
with a lot of people suffering with a whole array of anxiety disorders. So people do come to us with low levels of anxiety, and they may just need a bit of guidance along the way. But the symptoms can become more severe than that, and come into certain presentations that we've all heard of, things like obsessive compulsive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, PTSD, for instance. But the general symptoms of anxiety fall into 4 main realms, if you like, and these are 4 parts of our experience. So we have an emotional experience of anxiety, which is where we feel the uneasiness, the dreads, the nervousness in our emotions. We have a very distinct or particular thinking style that goes with anxiety, which you may notice when you're being anxious, and that's something called worry. We all know that term. It's worry, which is characterized by kind of forward projections of catastrophe, always asking questions, the what ifs, what if this happens, what if that happens.
Quite pessimistic kind of
absolutely, thinking the worst about what might happen in the future. So
it may not ever happen. Right?
It may not ever happen, exactly. So that goes on in our mind. There's lots of rigid thinking as well, so absolute terms of it shouldn't be this way and it must be that way and I need this, for instance. So, for example, the old classic of a partner maybe saying about their partner, if he or she loved me, really loved me, then, they'd know exactly how I'm thinking. They that it should be that way. Can you see? And obviously when it isn't that way, then they start to feel anxious. So lots of rigidity in the way we think when we're anxious. There's also the bodily response of anxiety, which is often the one that people come to notice first of all and realise there might be something going on for them, and certainly often become anxious about that anxious bodily response. So
it's a bit of a cycle, isn't it?
Indeed, it is a vicious cycle. Gosh. So we're talking about things like an increased breathing rates, for instance, a difficulty catching our breath. Our heart can beat fast, a rapid heartbeat, heart palpitations particularly. We can feel dizzy and lightheaded at times. We may feel nauseous or cramp in our stomach. And often some of the sort of symptoms of IBS, particularly irritable bowel syndrome, we don't often associate with anxiety, are anxiety related. This is a problem in the stomach where we may have...
Now, I can relate to the heart palpitations because I didn't actually tell you this, but I used to get panic attacks quite a lot. It's about 15 years ago. I had it for like about 7 years. It came like with depression, panic attacks, and I just remember like the way you're describing, just feeling very anxious out of nowhere. It would just come on, like I wasn't expecting it. It would just start to happen, and my heart would beat very fast. I'd get very hot, and I would have to make sure I got indoors as soon as possible because I knew then I'd start to shake and I'd even scream because I was so terrified what I went through. And it was such an awful thing to go through. And I know people don't have it to that extent, but there are a lot of people that actually do experience these kind of attacks as well, and it is related, isn't it, to anxiety at the end of the day?
Absolutely, yes. And one of the very common components of it is what you described there, which is sort of going back home when you feel that way. Can you see? So we want to escape to indoors. So that's the behavioural component of anxiety and one of the symptoms that we can experience in itself. So we do lots of avoidance of situations or objects. That's where phobias come in particularly, where we avoid those situations. It may involve us doing lots of sort of checking behaviour as well. So if we're anxious about our physical health, for instance, we may check our body a lot to see what sort of symptoms we've got. We're reassurance seeking, asking people, for reassurance about certain things when we're anxious as well. That may also look like us going onto the internet or Google to search up symptoms that we may or may not have. So we call it.
I'm laughing because there's a friend of mine that does that a lot. She's always thinking that there's something wrong, and she'll go on the internet and start searching for things. I try to avoid doing that because sometimes you end up reading stuff that it didn't even enter your mind, and then all of a sudden you're really like extra worried because of something that you didn't even know was there in the first place.
Absolutely, Chrissy. This is the vicious cycle that we get in with our anxiety, is that when we experience it, we don't want it. And if we try and get rid of it, we have more of it. It's classic. Every single time, that's the way it goes. So if you can imagine that, as we just said, I mean, we might, for instance, have some sort of social anxiety. We may just feel a bit sort of uneasy in social situations. So in order to cope with that, we might... To get rid of that feeling, if you like, we then may, drink some alcohol when we're out and just keep drinking alcohol until we feel that Dutch courage bubbling up. And then, of course,
you do something you regret, and then you feel really anxious the next day because you've done something stupid.
That's it. So it just feeds our anxiety. We may also use foods, comfort eat, to feel better or to feel less anxious. Then, of course, we just become anxious about putting weight on, for instance. So it's always a vicious cycle. Whatever we do to try and get rid of our anxiety, it brings on more of it. And that's the most important thing to recognise. And also the way out of it.
Okay, and actually we are going to be speaking to our viewers about how you can actually deal with the anxiety, how to get rid of it in a lot of cases, hopefully. I know you can get rid of it because I did. Although I do get anxious sometimes, but I know how to cope with it sometimes nowadays. But after the break, we're going to be delving more into this. We've got actually a slideshow that you're going to be talking us through as well, and like helping our viewers recognise some of the symptoms and also what you can do in each situation as well. But if you are going through this and you would like to, ask a question by email, you can email us on chris@chrissybshow.tv. You can also, if you want, you can also go on the Facebook page, the Chrissy B Show is on, put your comments there, and Amelia's going to be joining us after the break as well to read your emails. So as I said, it's not something that is uncommon. Lots and lots of people go through it. You're not the only one. Although I do think some people really have it bad, because I was actually reading an email from a gentleman. I was on the NHS website, if I can just find it here. And this gentleman, actually, he's 46 years old, and he said he's realised that he suffers from anxiety, and I think it's quite obvious from what he's saying. He said he's been biting his nails since he was 5 years old. And then he says he gets really, really anxious when his boss is a bit demanding and basically says, look, I need this done in an hour. And this is what happens to him. He says, I often get shaky and I have to go to the toilet as I feel nauseous, and I vomit and I start crying. I start to feel inadequate with my work, and I start having doubts as to my capabilities. I have been carrying a barrier around me as a defense mechanism against these decisions which I feel I cannot control. And for me, I feel it's been a fight to gain recognition of normality. And then he says a bit more, but then he ends there like, I want my life back. So obviously he feels like he's not actually living his life. So if this sounds familiar and you are going through this as well, please do stay tuned, because Dr. Michael's going to be really helping our viewers tonight. And hopefully you get some help from the show as well. So join us after this. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show, where we're speaking all about anxiety. So we were describing anxiety before the break. And now we're going to find out how to actually deal with it as well, because obviously it's something, if you're watching, you don't really want to have to live with it every single day. Although we do go through it, don't we, Doctor? We do go through it, yes. From time to time. It's the important thing. Right. Remember, it's a natural part of our experience. It's not something we can get rid of or stop, but how we manage it is the important thing to think about. Okay, so just before you tell us more, let's just go to Amelia for a couple of comments as well.
Yes, Chris, we've got one here from Sarah. She comments, I'm a victim of panic attacks. I had just started a new job and I felt a drama of panic. My whole body went funny and I could not think straight. I just felt a strong urge to get out of the room. I had no idea what was wrong with me. I ended up making an excuse to leave my workplace that day and go home. I then spent the rest of the day pondering about what had just happened.
Okay, do you have another one as well?
Yes, we've got one from Jane. She comments, my introduction to panic and anxiety happened at a very young age, till my teens. I'm now fully recovered and now I'm a lot stronger. I no longer worry about anything. If there's one thing that anxiety teaches you more than anything else, is to not let worry or distractions. My life is so much different now and I try to live it to the fullest. I wasted so many years and now I feel it's time to catch up.
Okay, so the first one was actually going back to what you were saying, Doctor, as well, because she was saying because she had the panic attack or that episode, then she went home and she was worried that she'd had it, so that brought on more anxiety, is what you were saying before. Because it could have just been an isolated case, couldn't it? Well,
it could be, indeed, in its own, but the more we start to become anxious about being anxious, the more it lives itself out, absolutely. Yeah. And can you see, we're questioning it. What is that? What was that?
Where did it come from?
Is there something wrong with me? Yeah. And it's this style of questioning, the why, the evaluating, the judging ourselves, is there something wrong with me, that undermines our confidence, then leads to more anxiety.
Okay. All right, and also the second view as well. Do you really not worry about anything? Nothing at all? There must be something little that you might worry about sometimes. Because I think, okay, maybe she's saying that. I don't believe no one can worry about anything, because I think it's a natural human thing, but maybe you don't let it sort of consume you and take over your life, which is great, by the way. It's really good.
Absolutely. But it's a very important point, isn't it? It's that, you know, anxiety is what we do when our life is going on around us, basically. We're not present, experiencing a rich and meaningful life when we're caught up in the thoughts in our mind all the time. So this viewer has made it very clear that now she's able to, you know, live a meaningful and satisfying existence by letting go of her anxiety. So there's a cost to anxiety, and it's really important to recognise that as a motivation to change.
That's really good. So, help us then.
All in a few minutes.
I know we haven't got, because there is quite a lot to go into, but we haven't got time to do everything, have we? But at least something you're gonna tell our viewers about.
Indeed. So we can you know, manage our anxiety through any one of our 4 experiences. So whether that be our thinking, emotional, behavioural, or physical selves. What I'd like to do with you is just think about our thinking self for a minute here today. So you know, if we can just bring up an image that I've brought with me, the first image here. And here it is. Here's Pete, the tightrope walker, a friend of mine. And Pete's really experienced at tightrope walking, But every time he steps out on the tightrope there, he has the thoughts, I'm going to fall. Now, that's quite an understandable thought, but our instinctive response to Pete would be something like, well, come on, Pete, you're not going to fall. You've done this for years. You're really experienced. So it's a bit of positive thinking. But he'll just reply back by saying, I might fall, how do you know? So all this positive thinking that we've done in psychology for some time now just doesn't really cut it. It doesn't bring on the sort of relief and long-term benefit that we want. So instead of all the positive thinking, we can just say to Pete, look, when you think I'm going to fall, how do you feel? Well, I feel anxious, he'll tell us, you know. And what happens to you behaviourally? Well, I just want to stay away from that tightrope and climb back down and forget the whole thing. So, okay, well, the thought, I'm going to fall, may be true, but it doesn't sound like a helpful thought to have at all if you want to make it across the tightrope. We don't have to have the thoughts in our mind. We don't have to pay attention to them, is what I'm trying to say. If you had the thought, Chrissy, that, you know, just for instance, I'm a green alien from outer space, you'd laugh it off instantly, can you see? But if you were Pete and you had the thought, I'm going to fall, you go, oh, I need to listen to that, you know, it's an important thought. So we pay attention to thoughts that represent some sort of danger for us, but you don't have to. Pete can treat any thought he has just like you might treat the thought, I'm a green alien from outer space, laugh it off. So how do we do that? Yeah, that's what I want to show you. So we can bring up the next image here.
And just to specify as well, the tightrope is like, for example, maybe something that we do feel nervous about or anxious about, because it's like we are sort of stepping out into maybe the unknown, or is that...
Absolutely. I mean, the tightrope could be an analogy for life, really, couldn't it? Making it across life or carrying on with what's important to you. For Pete, it's making it across the tightrope, but for us, it might be, you know, a rich and fulfilling relationship rather than worrying about a partner leaving us all the time or something like that. We need to just pay less attention to thoughts,
Okay.
So thoughts are just that. They're sounds in our mind. There's nothing else to them. What we do is we get too caught up in the content of our thoughts, what they're saying to us, but they're just sounds in our mind. So the technique that I want to show you is called diffusion. It's about stepping back from our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. Thoughts are part of our experience, and we can observe our thoughts, if you like,
That's a really interesting concept, like thoughts are not us. Something else, because sometimes people get such bizarre and ridiculous thoughts, and you start to think, oh my gosh, I'm not good in the head, maybe, or like this, I'm really like us, that you start to feel guilty about maybe some thoughts that you could be having as well. So that's really interesting.
Absolutely.
To say that the thoughts aren't you.
Thoughts come and go in our awareness, if that makes sense. What we do is we get caught up in them and we get fixated on them, and then they stay in our forefront of our consciousness. But if we just unhook our awareness, which I'll show you how to do, the thoughts just pass by.
I'll stop talking to you.
No, that's fine. It's all very important stuff, isn't it, to make the point clear. If you could just imagine that on that piece of paper there for a second is a thought that makes you feel anxious. I mean, do you mind sharing one, or can you think of one in your own mind? Maybe when I haven't
had, it's going to sound really like shallow, but when I haven't had time to do my housework properly, I get very anxious and stressed. Right. Because I like a clean house.
Right. So I haven't done my housework. Could be a thought that makes you feel anxious. Absolutely. So when we have that thought, we do two things to it usually. We either fuse with it, we get caught up with it. We go, I haven't done my housework. That's terrible. That means I'm a bad housewife. I've done a terrible thing. Well, you know, my house is a mess. Everyone's going to laugh at me. All this kind of stuff. We get caught up with it, or we try and push it away. We try and go, well, actually, it's not that messy. You know, we try and challenge it with a positive thought, or we try and distract ourselves.
I do the first one.
Yes, indeed. So just imagine that I represent all that's important to you in your life. Like getting on with the rest of your day and doing all the things, Now hold that piece of paper up with the thought on it, and hold it as close as you can to your face, and get all fused up with it in front of your eyes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And how connected to me do you feel now? All that's important in your life.
I can't see.
Not at all, absolutely.
Not at all.
So you're not connected as you're caught up with that thought. Now if you can push that piece of paper out as far as you can in front of you, that's it, tension, and pushing it away with all that tension, with all your might, trying to get rid of it, don't want to think it, I'm not that bad. And how connected to you are you with me now?
I can see you now.
Yes.
I can see you, but I feel more connected to you because this isn't right in my face anymore.
But you're still preoccupied with it,
I can still see it.
And your energy's all in it and all that kind of stuff. Now just pop that under your arm. Hey.
Hi.
So you're not, you can see me, and you're connected to me. Can you see? You're not struggling with that anymore.
No.
You're not struggling with it. You're not trying to change it, challenge it, make it positive. You're not pushing it away or anything. But you can just keep it with you. This is very different to what we usually do, trying to think positively all the time. It's with you in your awareness, but you don't have to focus on it.
And it's not stressing me out as it was
absolutely
before. Right. Okay.
So we can just take a look at the next image quickly, moving through this quite fast. These are some metaphors that really help us understand what we're trying to do when we're diffusing from our thoughts. So we can imagine our thoughts a bit like the TV that's on in the background as we get on and do some other more important task, like cleaning the house, for instance. There you go. Yes. So it's we can hear the noise, but we're not listening to the content. Can you see? Similarly, just going to another one of these, we can imagine that we're a bus driver of a school bus driving a load of noisy kids to school, and all the kids are in the background hurling abuse at us, saying, you don't know where you're going, you're going to get us there the wrong way, you're going the wrong way, all this kind of stuff. What we want to do instinctively is put our foot on the brake, turn around and say, I know where I'm going, shut up. But then we just add fuel to the fire and we start arguing with our thoughts. Can you see? Or we can just allow them to be there. Not push them out. I can hear them, but I'm not listening to the content of what they're saying, and just keep focused on where we're going.
So you're saying, like, stop, don't have a conversation with them, basically.
Absolutely.
So don't pay them any attention. They're
Absolutely.
Just like,
we can bring our attention away, but can you see we're not moving the thought away, we're just bringing our attention away from it. Yeah? Here's some techniques to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So we can just bring up the next slide. So what I'd like you to do is think of your thought again. So what was it?
Housework.
And I haven't done the housework.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. What I want you to do, and not to get you too upset, but I just want you to really start thinking that now, yeah? And really notice the emotional impact.
Should I look at you or the paper?
No, just leave the paper now. I won't do that anymore. Just imagine that thought. Keep playing it over in your mind. Really buy into it. I haven't done the housework, haven't done the housework. And just to feel the anxiety as it can rise. Just do that for a second.
I'm getting angry.
Yeah, a bit angry, a bit anxious, a bit frustrated. Okay. Now I just want you to add a few words before that thought, so a prefix if you like, which is, I am having the thought that I haven't done the housework. Right. Just repeat that and notice what difference that has for you in terms of the emotional impact. I'm having the thought that.
I'm having the thought that I haven't done my housework.
What difference does that have?
It's alleviated it.
It's alleviated some of it, yeah? There's some distance maybe between you and that thought. Can you see? You're no longer caught up in the autopilot, I haven't done my housework, but now you're stepping outside of it and noticing a thought in my mind, which is a different experience. You can't do your thought and notice it at the same time. Can you see?
So you mean, yeah.
We may also just repeat our thoughts rapidly, like, I haven't done the housework, I haven't done the housework, I haven't done that. It just becomes a sound.
That makes it, yeah, okay.
It just becomes a sound because that's all our thought ever was. It's just a sound in our mind. And so we wake up, if you like, to this moment of reality and say, I'm sitting here right now allowing a sound to determine my reality. That's all a thought ever was. This is all based on principles of mindfulness, which is about paying attention to our experience in any given moment. The thoughts in our mind, the bodily sensations we may have, or the emotions and our behaviours in an accepting way, just noticing it for what it is, rather than trying to change it up in some way.
Okay. But eventually I do have to go home and do my housework.
Yes, you do.
So maybe there's some technique. For example, okay, I understand what you're saying, it's really good, so you don't sort of get anxious, you don't get worked up, but then obviously you do have to deal with certain situations as well, right?
Yes, but you may be more able to deal with certain situations when you're not anxious.
Actually, that actually reminds me of something, because I remember not so long ago I had some extra responsibilities, and because it just seemed so much, I really started to panic. And there was actually a time I managed to kind of overcome that part where when I used to get really overloaded with work, there would be a time when I would just break down crying. I was like, I can't take it anymore, I've got too much to do, I can't do it. And then that would wear off. But then it would kind of happen quite often when I got really stressed. But then I managed to control that. But then I still felt quite panicky. When I got these extra responsibilities, I was like, oh my God, it's too much for me, I can't do it. And I noticed that as soon as I was in that panicky mode, I could not think straight at all. And it was only when I said, okay, pull yourself together, Chris, just sit down, write down everything that you have to do and just organise yourself. And as soon as I did that, I was okay. I actually saw it wasn't as bad as I thought, that it actually, although it was a lot to do and it's still a lot to do, but I can manage it if I don't panic and I don't get stressed and I just sit down and I think and I don't act, with all that emotion,
yes,
then I can actually deal with it.
It's going back to that principle of, challenging. I thought, well, I have housework to do, so what am I supposed to do about it? But, that's fair enough, but it's just not helpful to keep worrying about it, because you get anxious and that gets in the way of you actually doing what's meaningful for you, like your housework. So it's about managing your anxiety first, and then opening up a whole arena of space for you to get on with what's important for you, whether that's your housework or not. But when you're anxious, you can't get on with stuff. You're doing anxiety.
Are there any like practical things that people can do as well? Because I've got a bit more time left, got a few minutes. Like in the sense of, I don't know, like physical activity, anything like that? What else can help?
Absolutely. Behaviourally, there's lots of things that we can do to help ourselves. Exercise is a really positive behaviour to help us moderate some of the adrenaline rush that we get with anxiety, to release some of that muscular tension. And of course, when we're doing exercise, we notice that we're getting fitter. We might be losing weight as well if we're concerned about our weight. So it's a real confidence booster, can you see, and hitting the real problem at the core there. So working on our confidence and self-esteem. It's about relaxation as well, and breathing techniques, of course. And there's some great breathing schedules out there that people can look up on the internet, breathing from the diaphragm and so forth. But also, putting time for you first, if that makes sense. So looking after yourself and doing what you find valuable in life. We know
people forget to do that, don't they?
We too much.
We just get too like workaholics, and like we don't make time for ourselves.
And we're too focused on achievement in life. I need to get the perfect job, the perfect relationship, all the money in the bank, all this kind of stuff. But that doesn't give us well-being in life. We know in psychology, it's more about our values, about what sort of person we want to be. So if it is, I need a relationship to be happy, we say to people in therapy, what is it about a relationship that will make you happy? Well, is it that you'll be a caring or loving partner, or are you being supportive? Oh, those are the things I like. Well, then you can do them now. You don't need a relationship to be happy. You can be caring and supportive with your loved ones, other people around, your friends.
And so I think you're happier when you're in a relationship.
Well, maybe.
I'm not saying you can't be happy, but I think you are happier.
Well, maybe for some people. But there's no such thing as the perfect. And until we get that thing, we're just anxious or depressed until we get it. Can you see? So we need to start to understand that we need to move in line with our values, what's important to us in life, and that brings a tremendous sense of well-being. Looking after ourselves, and anxiety dissipates as a consequence.
And how about, say, for example, if you see a family member that is quite anxious and maybe they don't want to go for counselling, they think they're okay and everything. How do you think we can help like a family member out? What do you think?
It's really important to, normalise the experience and to sit with them in an accepting way. So none of this, come on, you'll be all right, or snap out of it, it's not the end of the world. Doesn't happen at all. That used
to really annoy me, because my boyfriend, my now husband, my boyfriend at the time always used to say, "Oh, just snap out of it, it's nothing, why, so what?" And it used to infuriate me. I used to get really angry, because it's like no one knows what it actually feels like, and it's not like you can just kind of wave a magic wand and it will just go, because it's horrible when you're going through it, and people don't understand sometimes.
Indeed. Loved ones come from a supportive place when they do that. They're trying to help us, but they don't say that it actually makes the problem worse. So it's more about empathy, which is basically about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So being curious is to be empathic. Just ask questions. What's it like for you? How do you feel when you think that way? When you feel that way, what are you thinking? What's most difficult? Just keep asking questions of the loved one that is anxious, and that will be helpful.
That might actually make them see, well, it's not actually that bad as what they were thinking if they actually talk about it.
It might have some shift in the way they're thinking about things, but it will just let them feel more settled and understood, and more acceptable, which is all connected to our confidence. Can you say about self-acceptance and others accept me? Because as soon as we say, come on, it's not that bad, people are basically saying, don't feel that, it's wrong. And then it's like, what's wrong with me then? So it starts fueling the vicious underconfidence cycle.
I understand. Okay, so if people are going through it watching now, and they realise they do need help, obviously you've got your organisation that can help people. They can go to other people as well. You don't have to go through it alone. And I think, as I keep saying on the show, sometimes people, it feels worse for some people, because they think, oh, I'm the only one that's going through it. I'm the only weird. They think they're weird. They think there's something wrong with them.
Yes.
But everyone gets stressed about different things. So.
Absolutely. I'd encourage people to open up to a friend, a family member, a work colleague, to let them know. And you'll be surprised that they'll probably say, I feel the same a lot of the time as well. But certainly to speak to your GP if things are getting particularly bad for you. Definitely. And your GP can refer you on to a specialist. There's medication out there, but I wouldn't advocate that without some self-help, maybe in the form of reading or certainly psychological therapy or treatment along
Dr. Michael, thank you so much for all the lovely advice.
You're more than welcome.
And I'm sure we've helped a lot of viewers tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so after the break as well, we're going to be joined by Chris Brown for some self-development tips, so join us then. Welcome back to the Chrissy B Show. We've been speaking all about anxiety, and I'm joined now by Chris Brown, who's here with us every week. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Chrissy.
I just wanted to go through some of celebrities and stars that actually have been affected by an anxiety disorder. Now, this is one that might surprise you. David Beckham. Now, he normally looks really cool and calm and collected, doesn't he? But apparently he has a phobia known as, let me try and pronounce this properly, sounds a bit like my one, ataxophobia, which is a fear of disorder or untidiness. I don't have that. I just don't like a messy house. I like it nice and clean. Anyway, okay. So according to Beckham's wife, Victoria, he organises the clothes in his closet by colour and even lines up his soda cans in the fridge. Is that a bit obsessive? Do you do that, Chris?
No, not the soda cans.
Are you sure?
No. I'll tell you something saying that. There was a friend that I know, I'm not going to name anybody, but he turned instantly superstar, big star.
Yeah.
And it shocked him so much that anxiety just took over, and he couldn't go out there perform or anything like that. It took years of counselling to get him used to the lifestyle that he's in now, you know. But it was instant fame, just went from one place to another.
Okay. Gosh. Okay, and here's another one as well. Whoopi Goldberg. She was apparently afraid to fly for years, and Goldberg's condition is a form of anxiety known as a specific phobia, a fear of a particular object or situation. So treatment for phobias can include medications, CBT and exposure therapy. Okay, so you can see you're not alone. You also, you know, the stars go through it as well. If there's like a sudden change of something, if there's a sudden, you're actually exposed to something new and like a new career development, something like that, anyone can actually go through this. So as I said, if you want more information about the show as well, you can visit chrissybshow.tv. Now, I'm having a bit of trouble over here with Chris's microphone, but is it all fixed, Chris?
I believe it is. I believe it is.
We're just double checking.
Someone can run over and grab my microphone at me. So you're not having it. You're not having it. I want a microphone. I want to talk today.
I'm not going to waffle anymore. You can tell me about your stuff. Go on.
Well, it's funny you're talking about anxiety. We're talking about in the workplace as well. The sort of stresses.
Can you have some water for Chris, please? Sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Can you have some water for Chris?
The sort of stresses that you go through in work and looking at different areas as well. And it's funny because this quote I always use in a lot of seminars, and it goes that work hard on yourself. Mm-hmm. Work hard on your job, sorry. Let's get it right. Let's stop again. Let's go back. Right. Work hard on your job. Work hard on your job and you make a living. Mm-hmm. Work hard on yourself and you'll make a fortune. Mm. Now, when you think about that, I mean, work hard on your job. You're working hard, you're going to progress, you pay the bills, you get on. It's an everyday life, it's a routine. Nothing wrong with that, but it's good. Mm. But work hard on yourself and you're going to add more skills to yourself, which makes yourself more valuable out there in the market field. Now, in saying that actually came from Jim Rohn, actually. I listened to that. I've actually used it over and over. And it's something I actually embraced myself and realised, well, look, you need to know more about this and more about that. And I advise it to anybody as well. You've got to enhance yourself, learn more about everything and anything around. That sometimes it's going to be useful to you, right? Now, in saying that, there was a result with a situation that came about, and I started calling it information versus communication. Now, I'll give you a little story. There's a young guy, his name's Eddie. I always got a little story, haven't I?
Yeah? Yes,
I'm just seeing your eyes.
I like these, go on.
Right, there's a guy named Eddie. And Eddie,
okay.
Right, Eddie went to school and he studied very well, and then he went to law and everything. He studied very well, passed all the bar and all that. But while he was studying, he never wanted to take place or any form in the areas of like communication or drama or communicating to people, group exercises, things like that. He always thought, no, I'm doing well at what I'm doing and I'm going to hit it and that's all I need. And then he ended up in this company. And while he was there for the company, he was doing excellent. But then they changed bosses. And this boss was one of the bosses who barks at everyone now and then. Met one of them before?
Yep.
All right.
I think we all have.
Yeah, I think we all have. Who barks at everybody now and then. Every report he sends in criticised. And one time Eddie went in and he sent a report in and he said, look, if you send a report like that again, you won't ever send a report around here again. You'll be out. So Eddie, bit of anxiety going on, thought about this all the time and it played in his head to the point that one day he went in and he thought, I can't take this. And he walked out. Similar to that person who wrote into earlier on, right? Left. Funny thing about it, boss turned around and said, looked for Eddie and said, where is Eddie today? And they said, he's gone. And he said, this guy had such a great future. Why did he leave? So if you thought about it, information, communication, if Eddie had communicated what he was feeling, what he was going through, talking about it in one way or another to his boss, he wouldn't have got to that point. But he kept everything in, and it was very hard to communicate, but he had all the information. So the summary on that, which we're talking about here, is the summary says, if we just stay here, you might know the information, but with no skills in communication, it will just fall apart. And that goes for all of us in one way or another. We've got to start to express and not bottle up what's actually going on, which partly leads to anxiety you was talking about earlier on. So in a work situation, it's very important. You've got to express what you're going through, put your ideas forward, say. Because this boss barking, maybe that was just his way. It didn't have to be anything personal.
Can I just say something as a side note, Chris, as well? Because sometimes I think people really do take it personally when their boss is angry or tells them off. But you've got to remember that when your boss is like telling you off, or your manager is like correcting you about something, or telling maybe this isn't the right way to do it, people do take it personally. It's not anything you should take personally. They're just at least they're showing you so you can actually improve in your work. And I know a lot of people that they can't take it when their boss says something negative, or seemingly to them it seems negative, but actually it's just constructive criticism. And there's some bosses that do bark and they do maybe raise their voice. I don't think it's the right thing to do. You should try and sort of contain those kind of emotions, but at the end of the day we live in the real world, and that is going to happen sometimes, isn't it? So you have to learn to not take it personally, and also try and understand your boss as well, because they get very stressed. They have to deal with things that maybe you don't even think about, that you don't have to think about, but they've got like targets they have to meet maybe, and like they've got all this pressure on them, so they are likely to bark sometimes. But it's important to kind of try to understand them, just to help you to understand them, but also not to take it personally. Just take that criticism on board and try and change that and be different. Correct.
It's not all about you. And we went over this last time. It's not all about you all the time, but sometimes you've got to take it. Someone might grow up being told off quite a lot. And then they go into that environment, they get told off again, but this time they haven't got rid of a little child inside of them. So they've taken that way. So just as you said, we've got to get over it and move on.
And you have to toughen up, because if you don't, if for example your manager sees that any little thing, any little piece of advice they try to give you, you don't take that on board and you panic instead, and as we were talking earlier, you panic and you get upset. How are they supposed to give you more responsibility? How are you supposed to get promotion, or even if you want to start your own business one day, how are you going to cope?
Right. But it doesn't give credit to the boss being like that. That's one thing we've got to underline. The boss should not be like that.
Although they do have their days, Chris.
Yeah, they have their days. Good days, bad days. Well, you think about it at the end of the day. You know, we all have our time. I think it's quite good, actually. We all have a time where at one point somebody has a short fuse, they're under pressure in one way or another. It's not directed at that individual, it's directed at a situation. And as long as you can actually separate the two, you should be able to move on from there. You know?
Exactly.
I'm sure there's somebody who went home today who's sitting there watching this right now and thinking that I need to get back out there and do something. I hope so.
Me too,
Okay. All right, it's funny because I'm talking about the next one on, we're talking about assertiveness, which falls in line with that. And there's one way of looking at this. Well, there's two ways. Thank you very much. There's two ways of looking at this. What would we deem as assertive? What would you say would be assertive? An action about somebody. What would you say is assertive?
Assertive is probably when you make up your mind about something and you're quite firm with that and you make sure it gets done.
Make a decision. Yes, very much so. I mean, sometimes some people take assertiveness as being aggressive to put their point of view across, which is not. At the end of the day, it's being able to actually express yourself, make a decision, stick with that decision, make an executive decision and say, well, this is it exactly, or this is why I feel like this, or that's why A, B, C, D, E, F, G, without worrying about what somebody's going to think about your decision. You've got to get to the point where you've got to share your ideas. You can't just sit there on yourself thinking, oh, all your great ideas are all in your head and nothing happens. You've got to share your ideas. You've got to be honest with your colleagues as well, and honest with your boss about your feelings, your ideas, putting things forward. Makes all the difference at the end of the day. And you yourself, you could start on a smaller scale, just doing that with family alone, and gradually expanding on that bigger and bigger until you find that you...
people are very timid, they don't want to...
They don't want to do that.
No, they don't do that. Their mind gets changed very quickly. They get influenced very easily, don't they?
But it's funny because that boss is probably looking for somebody who does have ideas.
Yes.
But because you haven't expressed
Bosses don't like the yes employees all the time, do they?
No.
Believe it or not, because some people think, but I just have to agree with everything the boss says. But sometimes they like people to bring up ideas.
Have ideas, spring off. it generates at the end of the day. If you've got all yes people around just going, yes, yes, that's right.
I hate that.
Can't be great leadership at one, and it doesn't help in any kind of way. So putting a summary on that one as well, which we came up with, have a look at this. Seek to understand rather than be understood. Seek to understand rather than be understood. That works on both sides, actually. Talking about the boss, talking about the employee. Yeah? So we go into that. Number 3, risk. Okay. Risk. Who likes taking risks all the time? Wow. Oh, just the thought of it. I mean, sometimes thinking about risk, and it's a fearful thing.
Yeah.
We don't really want to take risks. But if we don't take risk, nothing happens, right? Okay. If you think about risks that we've taken in the past and think, well, was it worth it? Was it not? Sometimes it's gone wrong.
But at least you know.
Yeah.
At least you know. You should
exactly.
try it.
Done that risk, went wrong, thought, wouldn't do that again. Yeah. Costly, so you wouldn't go there again. But sometimes we're too afraid to take risk and nothing happens. And a lot of it is made up in our head. We think if we do this, that might happen. If we do that, this might happen. All the things might happen, but will never really happen. So you've got to step out there and take a risk. You know, back to that same thing, saying your point of views, new ideas, putting things in place. Take the risk. There's nothing to lose.
Sometimes they do happen, but then you just have to get over it, right? Because on rare occasions.
Yes.
Like when I asked my boyfriend, well, I told my boyfriend that I liked him just before he became my boyfriend, and he said he didn't feel the same way. He just saw me as a friend. It was a risk that I took. The outcome was negative for 2 weeks, but then he changed his mind.
All right.
It was fine.
So he got used to it.
And then we were happily married. Yeah, so I'm saying it can go wrong sometimes, but then at the end of the day, at least, you know, the person's tried, and at least they're not going to have that thought in their head, what if I'd done this, what if I'd done that? Because I think for me that's worse. That's a worse kind of emotion to go through than like
living with regrets.
Yeah.
What if I'd done this? What if I'd done that? Yeah.
I think
that's terrible, to live with a life of thinking I should have done this, I should have done that. It's no life at all.
I'd rather just bear with the consequences. That's
take
me.
a chance. Go out there. Live. We're born to live.
It paid off in the end. Other things didn't, but at least I tried. So,
and he's happy.
Yeah.
Yeah? That's great. Okay. So talking about that, we had a roundup of that one as well. And the summary of that was, risk takers take initiative and make decisions. Yeah. Take the initiative and make a decision. That's taking a risk. Going for it. Yeah. So we got number 4 here. Which I found really interesting as well, because it's about team players. Okay. And seeing you just mentioned a while ago, Beckham.
Yeah.
Right, now, could you imagine, right, now with all the success that Beckham has got, what has he got it from? What does it come from? Where is it?
His talent.
His talent, his talent in football, right? Yeah. But you couldn't actually picture Beckham on himself, running around the field and the opposing team against him, kicking the ball in the goal, running back, standing in the goal, you know, being a goalie at the same time and everything else, right? He needed a team around him to make this happen. Though, all right, he's very skillful at what he does, but he needed a team. Same thing I thought about the whole idea of, let's say, someone like Michael Jordan, right? You've got Michael Jordan, great basketball player, plays for the Bulls, but he's got to have a team around him to make him Michael Jordan. He couldn't run around the place playing and slam dunking and everything, just he and himself, me, myself, doing well. He couldn't do that, right? So he's got to have a team. Let's take that in a work environment. You've got to have a team. You've got to have a team around you to make it successful, to make that company work. You've got to have a team that gels. You've got to have a team that gets on. You've got to have a team that you can share ideas. And the boss themselves, sometimes at some point, has got to be part of that team and get muck in and find out what's actually going on with your team to make things happen. So I had a bit of a roundup on that one. The summary on that one was, a company without real team players cannot excel. Yeah. It's funny, we were talking about Excel earlier on. I was talking about a producer here, but I'm talking about the company on here, right? You can't excel without a team around you. And no, as I say, no man's an island. You know, and if anybody's thinking that way, I can't think of one job. Well, I'm trying to think of it even now. I've gone through this before, where it's just you alone, you succeed in one way. Could you think of any? No,
it's so true, because you know, a lot of from time to time we have like successful entrepreneurs come in here. You know, they've made millions and stuff, and every single one of them talks about the people they work with And if I hadn't had, like, we had Laura Morgan on the other day, and she was saying that she couldn't have done it without the team that she had, because, and like family as well around her as well, because they really, she went through some really hard times, but she was very honest with her employees and told them what was going on and how she was feeling. And they all pulled together and they really like helped. So it was something really, you know, no one can really do it on their own if they really want to be successful. They need those people around them, and they're valuable.
And you just coined it. You said she was very honest with them.
Yeah.
And sometimes we've got to be honest about our insecurities as well to make things happen, for people to come together instead of playing like, I can do it all by myself, I'm great, and we're going to get there.
That's right.
It'll be pretty sad in the end, yeah? So
true.
it's great to have a team around you.
Yeah.
So the whole idea is to look at getting on in the work environment, apply these areas as well, and see how far it take you. You'll do very well.
Okay. Chris, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chrissy.
See you again soon. Very soon, right?
Right.
Okay then, so you can join me again on Friday. We'll be talking about reaching your goals, whatever your age, in our Don't Stop Believing show. And then we're actually going to be having a singer on the show as well. It's going to be really, really good. So if you want more information about the show, don't forget you can go to our website, chrissybshow.tv. You can also like on Facebook, The Chrissy B Show, and also follow on Twitter at The Chrissy B Show. So have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and we'll see you again on Friday. Bye-bye for now.